6 months ago, he was using tweezers to arrange truffle sauce for 200,000 won under the chandeliers of a 3 Michelin star restaurant. Now he stands under a rusty awning with a single bag and a key to a shed where even the stove might not work. And under the floor of that shed, 48 unlabeled jars are waiting, and a single torn-out page with a warning. Han Jiseong turns the key in the lock 3 times. The mechanism wheezes and clicks. The door swings inward and blows dust in his face. It's dark inside. He feels along the wall, finds the light switch, flips it. Nothing. Flips it again. A lone lamp flickers to life and hums under the ceiling. Yellow light falls on 6 seats behind a wooden counter. Mouse droppings on the floor. A finger-thick layer of dust on the counter. It smells musty. But beneath that smell hides another. Warm. Yeasty. Like dough rising in the dark. Jiseong drops his bag and sinks right down onto the dirty floorboards. And laughs. Hoarsely. Like a man who's forgotten how it works. The chef of a 3-star restaurant. The face of a cooking channel. A rising star of Korean haute cuisine. Now the owner of a shack on Ikkwandong Alley. 20 million won, everything his mother had saved for him for a rainy day. Gone into these walls, into this smell. He remembers her last call. She said she believed in him. He replied that he just wanted to feed people, not to collect stars, to feed. Back then, it sounded like a beautiful lie. Now, it's all he has left. He stands up, runs his finger along the counter and carves a long groove in the dust. The wood beneath the dust is smooth. Someone has been polishing it with their elbows for decades. Jason walks into the kitchen, turns the gas valve. It hisses. He clicks the lighter. A blue flame flares up, steady and strong. The stove is working. The first good news in 6 months. He turns on the faucet. The pipe groans and spits out rust. Then, clean water flows. Jason washes his face, and then he notices a gap in the floor behind the stove. Not a crack, a neat rectangle. Someone had cut it out of the floorboards. He drops to his knees. He pries up the edge. The board lifts. Beneath it, concrete steps leading down. That same smell hits him in the face. Warm, alive. Jason turns on his flashlight and goes down. 7 steps. The basement is 2 by 3 meters. Shelves line the walls. On the shelves are 48 ceramic jars, each about the size of a palm. No labels. The lids are tightly sealed. He picks one up. It's heavy. He opens it. The smell hits him so hard he recoils. It's not rot. It's something ancient. As if someone had simmered time over a low flame and sealed it with a lid. He dips a finger inside, a dark, viscous paste. He tastes it. His eyes widen. 12 years of haute cuisine, thousands of tastings. He can break down any flavor into 15 layers, 1 sip at a time. But he can't break this one down. There aren't 15 layers here. There are 100. The flavor goes from salty to sweet. Through bitterness, it returns to umami. And at the very bottom hides a note he cannot name, like the smell of rain on a hot stone. Jason puts the jar back in its place. Next to it, on the bottom shelf, lies a notebook, a thick one, in cracked leather, tied with a red string. He unties it. The string gives way easily, as if it had been untied 1,000 times. The first page, in ink, in small handwriting. Notes from the Soon household. The second page. Whoever finds this notebook will not find recipes. They will find the people I fed. Jason flips through the pages. Every page is filled with recipes, but next to each one is not the name of a dish, it's a person's name. Soup for Mr. Park, rice for Widow Cho, porridge for the boy who doesn't speak. Hundreds of names. The recipes are tied to people, like medicine to the sick. Notes are scattered among them. The minister came yesterday. I gave him soup. The next day, he revoked the decree. Jason rereads that line. He flips through the pages. The last page has been torn out by the root. On the back of the cover in pencil, if you find jar number 49, do not open it. Jason counts the jars. 48, exactly. In the corner of the bottom shelf is an empty round recess, exactly the size of a jar. Number 49 is missing. He goes upstairs with the notebook. He sits down at the counter. It's pouring outside the window. The lamp hums. And then another sound breaks through the rain. Someone is crying. Quietly, heart-wrenchingly. Jason looks up. Through the fogged-up glass, he sees a silhouette. A hunched old woman is sitting on a bench right in the downpour. No umbrella. He stares at her for 10 seconds. Then he stands up. He steps out into the rain. He walks over. She looks up at him with red eyes. He says he's preparing a test dinner and asks her to help him taste it. His voice is calm, professional, as if he's inviting a guest to a restaurant rather than pulling a grandmother out from under the downpour. She looks at him as if he's crazy. Then she nods. Inside, he seats her at the counter, the only clean spot. He has rice. While it's cooking, he goes down to the basement and takes the first jar off the shelf, opens it. His hands know what to do, even when his head doesn't know what it is. He's making myeokguk, seaweed soup, the simplest dish in Korean cuisine. But he makes the broth using the starter from the jar, 1 spoonful. The soup comes to a boil and the kitchen fills with a scent that makes his throat tighten. That's how it smells in a home where you're loved. He cuts up 3 side dishes. He sets the rice in front of her, a bowl of soup, a simple home-cooked dinner. The old woman brings a spoon to her lips. She takes a sip. She freezes. The spoon stops in midair. Her eyes widen. She slowly lowers the spoon and speaks very quietly. That's how my mother-in-law used to cook. She died in 72. Jiseong is silent. Not a word about the notebook. Not a word about the jars. He pours her some tea and sets it down beside her. The old woman eats. Tears stream down her cheeks and drip into the soup. But she doesn't stop eating. Outside the window, the rain subsides. The lamp stops humming. Somewhere under the floor, there's a quiet creak, as if the old house is sighing with relief, as if it's finally speaking. Jason wakes up on the floor of a diner with Master Sun's notebook on his chest. His back hurts. He can't turn his neck. For the first 3 seconds, he doesn't realize where he is. Then he sees the counter, the dusty walls, the lamp hanging from the ceiling. He remembers. He lives here now. The clock on his phone reads 6 in the morning. His battery is at 11%. There's only one outlet in the wall, and bare wires are sticking out of it. Jason gets up and surveys the kitchen in the morning light. What seemed merely old in yesterday's dim light now looks like a disaster. The tile behind the stove is cracked. The range hood is clogged with grease that has hardened over decades. The countertop is covered with scratches so thick that the surface has become textured. The faucet is leaking, rhythmically. A drop every 4 seconds. Jason counts. That's 21,600 drops a day. A former chef at a 3-star restaurant, and he can't even fix a faucet. He pulls out his phone and opens YouTube. He searches for how to replace a faucet washer. The video is 3 minutes. He watches it 4 times. Then he crawls under the sink. An hour later, his shirt is wet, and he has a scrape on his forehead from the pipe. The faucet isn't leaking anymore. A small victory. He records it in his head as his first. Now the kitchen. Jason rolls up his sleeves and starts scrubbing. Hot water and baking soda. There are no other supplies. He scrapes grease off the range hood with his fingernails. He mops the floor 3 times until the water stops running black. He wipes down every inch of the counter. By noon, the kitchen doesn't look new, but it looks alive, clean, usable. Jason goes down to the basement. He turns on the flashlight on his phone. He looks at the 48 jars. Yesterday he tried one. Today he has to sort through them all. He takes the first jar from the left end of the top shelf and opens it. Dark paste, a salty smell with a hint of something nutty. Twonjan, soy paste. But not like the kind in the store. Deeper, richer. He tastes it with the tip of his tongue. The flavor unfolds slowly, like a flower in hot water. 3 layers. 5. 10. 12 years of haute cuisine have taught him to dissect a flavor like a watchmaker dissects a mechanism. Every cog in its place. But here there are more cogs than he can count. He sets the jar down and jots it down in his notebook. Number 1. Twonjan, age unknown. The depth of flavor is beyond the norm. Second jar, a reddish paste. Gochujang, but not spicy right away. The heat comes in a wave 3 seconds after the flavor touches his tongue. First, sweetness, then smoke, then fire. He writes it down. Third jar, a clear liquid. He sniffs. Rice wine, makgeolli. But he's never drunk makgeolli like this before. The scent of a fresh rice field in August. He takes a tiny sip. Something resembling a sound appears on his tongue. It's as if he hears the taste rather than feels it. The fourth can, the fifth, the sixth. He opens each one, tastes it, takes notes. By the 23rd, his tongue grows tired and everything starts to blur together. He takes a break, drinks some water, waits 20 minutes, continues. On the 37th jar, he finds something strange. Not paste, not liquid, dry flakes, brown, brittle. He sniffs. Nothing. He places a single flake on his tongue. Nothing. Dead. No taste, no smell, no life. Jason stares at the can for a long time. Then it hits him. This culture has died. While the diner stood abandoned, someone didn't feed it in time, or the temperature dropped too low, or the lid wasn't sealed tight. The reason doesn't matter. The result is the same. The 37th jar is dead. What had been growing and fermenting for decades has turned to dry dust. Jason holds the jar in his hands. 47 alive, 1 dead. Irretrievable. He puts the jar back. His hands are shaking. He sits down on the concrete floor of the basement and covers his face with his palms. Somewhere inside him, something heavy and hot rises. He hasn't cried in 6 months. Not since the day the camera showed his face on live TV and the word poisoning scrolled across the screen. He didn't cry then. He didn't cry at the trial. When his wife put the divorce papers on the table, he didn't cry. And now he's sitting in the basement on the cold floor, crying over a dead jar with dried up starter. And he can't stop. 10 minutes later, he wipes his face. He gets up. He finishes the inventory. All the other jars are alive. 47 cultures. Each one unique, each one irreplaceable. He goes upstairs, opens Master Sun's notebook, begins to read the recipes carefully. Not like last night in a hurry, but slowly, word by word. Master Sun didn't write like a cook. He wrote like a doctor. Each recipe has instructions for a person with a heavy heart, for someone who hasn't slept in a long time, for a woman who has lost a child. The recipes don't just feed, they heal. Not in a medical sense, in a human one. Between the recipes are notes in small handwriting. A young soldier came by today. His eyes were empty. I gave him sagolguk soup that had been simmering for 12 hours. He ate 3 bowls. Then he sat for an hour staring at the wall. Then he stood up and said thank you. For the first time in 6 months. Jason reads this note and feels the hairs on his arms stand on end. 6 months. That soldier too has been here 6 months, just like him. He flips through the pages. He finds the section on cultures. Master Sun doesn't call them starter cultures. He calls them memories. Jar number 1 is the memory of a rice field in Chungcheon, the harvest of 52. Jar number 12 is the memory of the sea at Sokcho, salt and wind. Jar number 37. Jiseong searches for the entry. He finds it. Jar number 37. A memory of his mother. Jiseong closes the notebook. A memory of his mother. Dead. He sits motionless behind the counter and stares at the wall. A car drives past the window. Splashes hit the glass. He decides he won't cook today. He will read. All day. Until nightfall. He must understand what has fallen into his hands. By evening, he has read a third of the notebook. His eyes ache. His head feels heavy. But he has understood something. Master Sun was the last chef of the royal kitchen of the Joseon dynasty. Not a descendant of a chef. The chef himself. He learned from his grandfather, who served in the palace. When the monarchy fell, he went into the back alleys. He opened a snack bar. And for 50 years, he fed people the way kings were fed. Only not for gold, but for 5,000 won. Jiseong lies down on the floor behind the counter. He puts his notebook under his head instead of a pillow. He falls asleep. He dreams of an old man, skinny, in a clean white hanbok. The old man is standing in the basement, silently. He looks at the jars. Then he turns to Jiseong. He doesn't smile. He doesn't frown. He just nods, slowly, once, and adjusts the lid on one of the jars. Jiseong wakes up. Morning. The light in the window is gray. He goes down to the basement, looks at the jars. The lid on the 23rd one is sitting straight. Yesterday, it was slightly askew. He remembers that for sure. Now, it's sitting straight. Jason stands in the basement and looks at the jar with the adjusted lid. He decides he adjusted it himself. In his sleep. He was sleepwalking. Probably. Maybe. The third day at the diner starts with a problem. There's no hot water. The gas is working. Cold water is running. But the boiler is dead. Jason opens the boiler lid and looks inside. Rust. Scale a finger's width thick. The pipe is rotten through. He calls the service department. They quote him a price. 400,000 won for a replacement. He has 17 million left in his account. The rent for the first month has already been paid. Electricity, gas, water. Every won is on the account, and every won determines whether the diner will survive until the second month. He orders the cheapest boiler. The installer will come in 2 days. 2 days without hot water. Jason heats water in a pot on the stove and washes his hands like they did 100 years ago. He continues reading the notebook. Master Sun left behind more than just recipes. He left instructions on how to feed the cultures. Once every 3 days, each one gets its own. The first jar gets rice water. The second gets soy milk. The third gets a piece of barley bread soaked in water. Jason spends half the day feeding them. He opens each jar. He adds what's written in the notebook. Some cultures react immediately. The surface starts to bubble. Others are silent. They accept their food quietly. He opens the 37th one too. The dry flakes lie motionless. He adds the rice water anyway, simply because he can't help but try. By lunchtime, he has nothing to eat. The fridge is empty because there is no fridge. There is only a bag of rice and a bottle of soy sauce that he bought on the first day. He cooks the rice. He pours sauce over it. He eats with chopsticks while sitting at his own counter. The taste is flat, dead, like cardboard with salt. He's eaten the same rice 200 times over the past 6 months. Fast, cheap, meaningless. Jason looks at the notebook lying nearby. He opens it to the page with the recipe for plain rice. Master Sun wrote it. Rice isn't food. Rice is the foundation. If the foundation is dead, the house won't stand. You have to cook rice as if it's the only thing you have, because sometimes it's the only thing you have. Jason reads this and puts down his chopsticks. He throws away the uneaten rice. He washes the pot. He starts over. According to Master Sun's recipe, the rice needs to be rinsed 7 times. Not 3 as usual. 7. The water must become clear as glass. Then soak it for 40 minutes. Then cook it on low heat for 22 minutes. Not 20, not 25, 22. Then turn off the heat and don't open the lid for 10 minutes. Jason does everything exactly. He opens the lid. Steam rises. The rice glistens. Every grain separate. Every grain whole. He picks up a clump with chopsticks, puts it in his mouth, closes his eyes. This is a completely different kind of rice. The same bag from the store around the corner, the same tap water, but the taste is different. Slightly sweet, pure, alive. Jason eats slowly. For the first time in 6 months, he's eating not to fill his stomach, but to savor the flavor. After lunch, he steps out of the diner, for the first time in 3 days. The alley is narrow, about 4 meters from wall to wall. The asphalt is old, cracked, with grass sprouting through the cracks. Across from the diner is a flower shop, a sign reading Hana. Pots of white chrysanthemums in the window. 2 houses down, a cafe with a hand-painted sign. The letters are crooked, but alive. Around the corner, a mini market. Next to it, a self-service laundromat. The alley is alive. Not bustling. It lives. Quietly. Like an old man breathing evenly in his sleep. Jason goes into the mini market. He buys everything he can afford. 3 onions, garlic, a pack of dried seaweed, soy sauce, eggs, a pack of tofu, 2 zucchini, vinegar, sugar. This is his starter kit. A cat is sitting on the market counter. A ginger cat. A fat one. It looks at Jason as if he's a suspicious character. The cashier, an elderly woman with a perm, says that no one has opened that diner in a long time. The last owner died about 7 years ago. The grandchildren didn't want to bother with it. They sold it for a song. Jason asks if she remembers the owner. The cashier says she does. An old man, quiet, always in white. He cooked so well that the whole alley smelled of his kitchen. There was a line every day. Then he got sick. The diner closed. The alley grew quieter. She says this simply and without drama, like someone who's used to good things coming to an end. Jason returns to the diner with groceries. He starts cooking, not for anyone else, for himself. He needs to remember how to use his hands. 6 months without a kitchen is like 6 months without speech. The tongue remembers the words, but the lips have forgotten how to form them. He starts with the basics: gyudan mari, an egg roll, a simple dish that any chef makes on autopilot. His hands remember the motion. Beat the eggs, a thin layer in the pan, roll it up, another layer, roll it up. The knife cuts the roll into even pieces, each one 1.5 meters thick. Perfect. His muscle memory is working. He exhales. Next. Tofu panchan. Cut the tofu into cubes. Fry until golden brown. A sauce made from soy sauce, garlic, and sesame oil. No sesame oil. He does without it. It turns out fine anyway. Not great, fine. The difference between fine and great is exactly those jars in the basement. He slices the zucchini into thin rounds. He fries them. He sprinkles them with salt. He's cooking soup nearby. Simple. Tofu and seaweed in an anchovy broth. No anchovies. He makes the broth with onions and garlic. Pale, honest, not rich, but his. An hour later, there are 4 plates on the counter. Rice, soup, 3 panchan. Lunch for 1. Jiseong sits down and eats. At the counter. In the same spot where the old woman sat yesterday. He eats and hears the rain. Rain again. In Seoul, summer is the rainy season, and every day can turn into a downpour. The door opens. Jiseong looks up. A young woman stands in the doorway, soaked to the bone. Her long hair is plastered to her face. She's wearing an apron with dry dirt on it. She looks at Jiseong, then at the plates, then at Jiseong. She says she needs to wait out the rain, if she can. Just stand there. Jiseong nods toward a chair nearby. She sits down. Water drips from her onto the floor. Jiseong stands up. He goes to the kitchen. He puts the kettle on. He takes out the only clean cup. He pours hot tea. He sets it in front of her. She cups the cup in her hands. Her fingers are slender. There's dirt under her fingernails. A florist. From that shop 2 houses down. She says her name is Lee Ha-in. Jiseong introduces himself. Ha-in looks at the plates of banchan and the soup. She says it smells good. Jiseong thinks for a second. Then he stands up and places the rice and soup in front of her. She starts to refuse. He says he needs her opinion. He's testing recipes. That's half true. Ha-in picks up a spoon. She tastes the soup. She says the broth lacks depth, but the salt is just right. Jiseong nods. She's right. The broth is bland. No anchovies, no jar, nothing. Just onions and garlic. She eats in silence. Rain is pounding on the roof. The tea is getting cold in the cup. When she leaves, the rain hasn't stopped yet, but it has eased up. She says thank you. He tells her to come by whenever she wants. She nods and leaves. A minute later, Jiseong looks at the counter. Where Ha-in had been sitting, there is a small pot with a white chrysanthemum. She left it without saying a word. Jason took inventory and fertilized all the pots according to the instructions in the notebook. He began to brush up on his skills by preparing basic dishes and cooked rice for the first time using Master Sun's recipe. He met his neighbor, florist Lee Ha-in, who had run in to hide from the rain and left him a chrysanthemum on the counter. On the 7th day, Jason makes a decision. He will open the diner in 3 days, on the 10th. There are 16 million won in the account. Every day without income is a loss. Rent, electricity, gas, groceries. He does the math on a scrap of paper. With 0 income, the money will last 4 months. With minimal income, 6. 6 months to turn this shack into a place people will want to come back to. He makes a list. He needs a sign. He needs plates. He needs pots. He needs knives. He needs at least one decent knife. He sold his own set of kaishun knives for 800,000 won 3 months ago to pay the lawyer. Now he has a single knife from a convenience store that cost 9,000. The blade is as thin as foil and as dull as a spoon. He heads to the flea market in Hwanghakdong. 2 hours on the subway. The market is huge, rows of junk from floor to ceiling. He's looking for knives. He finds a stall with kitchenware. An old man, the vendor, is sitting on a folding chair reading a newspaper. Jason sifts through the knives, rusty, dull, cheap, one after another. And suddenly, his hand stops. A knife without a handle. The blade is covered in a dark patina, but the shape is right. He picks up the knife and runs his thumb along the edge. His finger burns. The blade is razor sharp beneath a layer of grime. Carbon steel, hand-forged. Korean craftsmen made knives like this 40 years ago. He asks the price. The old man says 5,000 won. Jason pays without haggling. At home, he spends 3 hours cleaning the blade. He removes the patina. He sharpens it on a stone he found in the basement next to the jars. The stone is also from Master Sun. Fine-grained, natural. These cost 200,000 in the store. The knife comes to life. The blade gleams. Jason takes an onion and cuts it. The knife glides through the onion like butter, silently, effortlessly. The rings fall onto the cutting board, thin as paper, each one the same thickness. He cuts another one, and another. His hands remember the rhythm. The knife becomes part of his hand. He smiles. His second smile this week. At the flea market, he also bought 6 deep bowls made of thick earthenware for 12,000, 3 teacups without handles for 3,000, 1 large pot with a thick bottom for 20,000, 1 wooden cutting board, 2 wooden spoons, a set of chopsticks, a total of 45,000 there, the bare minimum to start with. He arranges his purchases in the kitchen, 6 bowls on the shelf, the pot on the stove, the knife on a hook. The kitchen is starting to look like a kitchen. He spends the next day on the sign. He doesn't have the money to have one made. He finds a board in the basement, a wide one, an oak one, a smooth one. He takes the brush he borrowed from Hyun at the flower shop, black ink. He writes 2 characters, Sunchip, Sun's house, the master's name, not his name. He hangs the board above the entrance. The letters are a bit crooked, but legible. Hyun comes to take a look. She says the letters are a little uneven, but distinctive. Jisun says that's exactly how he intended it. Hyun smiles slightly, the first smile he's seen from her. She brings him a pot of mint. She says the mint will come in handy in the kitchen. Jisun places the pot on the windowsill. Now he has 2 living things in the diner, a chrysanthemum on the counter, and mint on the windowsill, plus 47 living jars in the basement. In the evening, he sits down with Master Sun's notebook. He reads halfway through. The recipes are getting more complicated. Sagalgooks, beef bone broth, 10 hours of cooking. The bones need to soak overnight, then cook. Skim the foam every 20 minutes for the first 2 hours. Then add daikon. Then remove the daikon. Then add jar number 5. 1 spoonful. The broth will change color from cloudy to milky white. That's a sign the broth is ready. Jiseong takes notes. He needs bones. Good bones are expensive. They're cheap if you know where to look. In the morning, he heads to Mahjong Market, Seoul's huge meat market. Noise, the smell of blood and cold. Butchers in rubber aprons shout out prices. He walks past the stalls with Hanwoo beef at 300,000 per kilo, past the pork, past the chicken, to the very end of the market. That's where they sell bones and trimmings. What's left after the nice cuts have gone to the restaurants in Gangnam? He buys 5 kilograms of beef bones for 15,000 won. The butcher, an elderly man with a red face, looks at his hands and says he has the hands of a cook. Jiseong nods. The butcher asks where he works. Jiseong says he has his own place, a small one, in Ikwan-dong. The butcher says he knows that alley. His grandmother used to go there to eat, to that little diner, a long time ago, when he was a boy. Jiseong asks what she said about the food. The butcher is silent for a second. Then he says that his grandmother used to say, "They only make soup like that when they love you." Jiseong takes the bones and leaves. The butcher's words echo in his head all the way home. They only make soup like that when they love you. At home, he soaks the bones in cold water. He leaves them overnight. Tomorrow, he'll cook his first broth using Master Sun's recipe. Tomorrow, a new life will begin. Or maybe not. He lies down to sleep behind the counter, a notebook under his head. A chrysanthemum smells nearby, mint on the windowsill, rain on the roof. 47 jars breathe in the basement. Tomorrow he'll open the door and hang up a sign. Open, 6 seats, 1 dish a day. He'll decide exactly what it is when he sees who's come. At night, he dreams of Master Sun again. The old man is standing in the kitchen. He's looking at the pot on the stove, at the bones in the water. He nods. He adjusts the flame on the burner that's turned off. Jiseong wakes up. He walks over to the stove. The burner is off, but the pot is warm. He touches the side with his palm. Warm. Not hot. Warm. As if someone had been warming it with their hands. Opening morning. Jiseong gets up at 4. It's still dark outside. He goes down to the basement, opens jar number 5, the broth one. According to Master Sun's notes, it is this very ingredient that transforms ordinary bone broth into something for which there is no word in any culinary dictionary. The bones have soaked overnight. The water has turned pink from the blood. He drains it, rinses the bones, puts them in a pot, fills it with fresh cold water, puts it on the stove. Low heat, the lowest setting. The flame barely touches the bottom. An hour later, the water begins to stir. Not boil, stir. Tiny bubbles rise from the bottom and burst on the surface. Foam. Gray. Cloudy. Jiseong skims it off with a slotted spoon. Every 20 minutes, exactly as written in the notebook. After 2 hours, the foam stops forming. The broth lightens. After 4 hours, it becomes clear as amber. Jiseong adds daikon, whole, unpeeled. An hour later, he removes it. The daikon has absorbed the bitterness and excess fat. Now the broth is clear. After 8 hours, he takes jar number 5, 1 spoonful, a small one. He drops it into the pot. The broth changes, not immediately, gradually. The color shifts from amber to milky white, as if someone had added light. The aroma rises above the pot and fills the kitchen, then the diner, then seeps through the cracks in the door onto the street. Jiseong tastes it, a spoonful of broth on his tongue. He closes his eyes, his knees buckle. He grabs the edge of the stove. The taste is such that he wants to sit on the floor and not get up. Deep, Warm, complex, layer upon layer, bone, meat, earth, rain, time. At the bottom of the flavor is something he can't name, something felt not on the tongue but in the chest, as if someone had embraced him from within. The broth is ready. 10 o'clock. Jason turns off the heat. It's now 2 in the afternoon. He hangs a sign on the door, handwritten on a piece of cardboard. Open. 1 dish, 6 seats, waiting. 20 minutes pass. 30. An hour. No one. The alley is empty. No rain. Heat. The humidity weighs on his shoulders like a wet towel. Jason sits behind the counter. He looks at the door. No one. 2 o'clock. 3. 4. His stomach is empty. He could eat something himself. The broth is on the stove. But he waits. If no one comes today, it all was for nothing. It means his mother gave 20 million into thin air. It means Master Son and his jars and notebook found the wrong person. At 5 o'clock, the door opens. A man in his 60s enters, short, stooped, in a short-sleeved shirt and wrinkled pants. He looks at the counter, at Jason. He says he saw the sign and that he's hungry. Jason nods and points to a chair. The man sits down. Jason looks at him. 30 seconds. The man's eyes are tired, not sleepy, tired. The kind of tiredness that doesn't go away after sleep. His hands rest on the counter. His fingers are thick, a worker's hands. On his ring finger is a white line from a ring that isn't there. Jason doesn't ask what happened. He goes to the kitchen. He takes out the rice. He cooks it according to Master Son's recipe. 7 rinses, 40 minutes of soaking, 22 minutes on the stove, 10 minutes of silence. While the rice is cooking, he pours the broth into a bowl. He cuts the green onions into thin rings. He adds a pinch of salt, a drop of soy sauce. He sets it on the counter in front of the man. The bowl is steaming. White broth in a white bowl. Green onions float on the surface. The man takes a spoon, brings it to his lips, takes a sip. Jason watches his face. It's a skill, not a culinary one, a human one. For 12 years, he's watched people eat. He's learned to read faces, micro-movements, eyebrows that rise slightly, the corner of a mouth that twitches, eyes that widen for a second. The man takes a second sip. His shoulders drop. The tension he carried like armor suddenly vanishes. He takes a third sip, a fourth, a fifth. Then he stops. He looks into the bowl. He says quietly that he hasn't eaten broth like this since he was a child, that his mother used to make something similar, that he didn't remember it until he tasted it now. Jason nods. He places rice in front of him. The man eats in silence. He finishes everything. He scrapes the bowl clean with the rice. He asks how much. Jason says 7,000 won. The man puts down 10,000. He says he doesn't need the change. He stands up. He'd up to the door. He stops, turns around, says he'll come back tomorrow, leaves. Jason stands behind the counter. 10,000 won lies on the counter. Sun Chip snack bars, first earnings. He picks up the bill, looks at it, puts it in his pocket. 20 minutes later, a second customer arrives. A young woman, around 30, a business suit, thin-framed glasses. Her hair is pulled back in a tight ponytail. She sits down and says she was recommended the place. She doesn't say who recommended it. Jason looks at her for 30 seconds. Her back is straight, looks down at her. Her jaw is clenched. She isn't hungry. She is exhausted. He goes to the kitchen. The broth won't do for her. It's too heavy. She needs something else. He cooks a simple soup, pumpkin, rice, a little ginger, and 2 drops from jar number 9. Master Son signed it with a single word. Peace. The soup turns out soft, creamy, orange like a sunset. The scent is warm and quiet. It doesn't hit the nose. It embraces. The woman takes a spoon. She tastes it. Her jaw relaxes. Her shoulders drop 2 centimeters. She eats slowly. She closes her eyes after every spoonful. When the bowl is empty, she sits motionless for a minute. Then she opens her eyes. They shine. She says the soup is delicious. Her voice is different, softer, quieter. She pays. She leaves. Jiseong washes the bowls. 2 customers on the first day. 17,000 won. Not much, very little. But 2 people left his diner changed. Not full, changed. At 6 in the evening, the door opens again. A girl stands in the doorway wearing a leather jacket over a white t-shirt. Her hair is short, dyed dark red. 3 earrings in her ears. She looks at the diner, at the counter, at the 6 chairs, at the cardboard sign that says open. She says it's the shabbiest place she's ever seen in her life. Then she sits down. Jason looks at her. Young, 24, maybe 25. A defiant look. But beneath the defiance, something fragile, like thin ice on a puddle. Step on it and you'll fall through. She says she knows who he is. Han Jiseong, former sous chef at Yunhua, the food poisoning scandal, all over the news. She saw him on TV. Jiseong is silent. She continues. She says her name is Park Min-soo, that she was on the show King of the Kitchen. She was eliminated in the first round. The judges said her food had no soul. The technique is there, the soul isn't. Since then, she hasn't been able to get a job at any restaurant. Her resume is marked as toxic. That's how the industry works. 1 failure and you're nobody. She says she didn't come to eat. She came to work. She asks him to take her on as an apprentice. If she's going to sink, she wants to sink with the best in the country. Jiseong says he has nothing to pay her with. Min-soo says she doesn't need money. She needs a kitchen. Jiseong says he has 6 chairs and 1 pot. Min-soo says she has her own set of knives and she's willing to sleep on the floor. Jiseong looks at her for a long time. Then he gets up. He goes to the kitchen. He pours broth into a bowl, the last one for today. He sets it in front of Min-soo. She looks at the bowl, at the white broth, at the green onions. She picks up a spoon, takes a taste. Her defiance vanishes. Her expression changes. She takes a second sip, a third. She puts down the spoon, speaks softly. She's never eaten homemade soup. She grew up in an orphanage, institutional food 3 times a day. All her cooking skills lack a foundation. She can cook like a robot, exactly, clean, dead. But this broth is alive. She doesn't understand how he does it, but she wants to understand. Jason nods, says 4 in the morning tomorrow. The bones won't wait. Min-soo stands up, says he'll be there, leaves. The door closes. Jason is alone. On the counter stands a pot with a chrysanthemum and empty bowls. Outside the window, the evening light bathes the alley in gold. 3 guests on the first day. 1 will return tomorrow. 1 has found peace. 1 wants to learn. Jason washes the bowls. He wipes down the counter. He goes down to the basement. He checks the jars. Everything is in place. Everything is breathing. He goes back upstairs. He lies down behind the counter. He closes his eyes. For the first time in 6 months, he falls asleep without fear that tomorrow will be worse than today. Jiseong cooked his first sagalguk soup using Master Sun's recipe, adding starter from jar number 5 and opened the snack bar. On the first day, 3 guests came, and for each one he prepared that person needed to try. Park Min-soo, a former contestant on the show King of the Kitchen, came to ask to be his apprentice, and Jiseong agreed. Min-soo arrives at 3:50, 10 minutes early. Jiseong is already standing in the kitchen. Bones in the water. The heat is on low. Min-soo looks at the stove, at the pot, at Master Sun's notebook lying on the counter. She is silent. Jiseong hands her an apron, a clean one, the only one he found in the closet upstairs, white with yellowed ties. Min-soo puts it on over his leather jacket. It looks ridiculous. A punk chef in a vintage apron in the middle of a 6-seat diner. Jiseong says the first task is to rinse the rice. Min-soo takes the rice, rinses it 3 times. The water is still cloudy. She drains it and wants to pour the rice into the pot. Jisun says no, 7 times. Minsu looks at him. She says it's pointless, that 3 times is enough, that every textbook says 3. Jisun takes a handful of rice from her bowl. He rubs it between his fingers. He shows her starch on his fingers, white, slippery. He says that this starch will turn into a paste when cooked. The rice will stick together. It will lose its shape. Each grain will cease to be itself. Minsu silently rinses it 4 more times. On the 7th rinse, the water is clear. Jisun nods. They work in silence. The morning passes to the rhythm of the knife and the water. Jisun cuts. Minsu watches. Jisun shows her how to hold the knife, not from above like a hammer, from the side. Thumb on the blade, index finger on the other side. The knife becomes an extension of the hand. Minsu tries. She has good technique, fast, precise, but stiff. She cuts the onion as if punishing it. The knife thumps against the board loudly and angrily. Jisun tells her to be quieter. Minsu says it makes no difference. The result is the same. Jisun takes 2 pieces of onion. One is hers, one is his. He places them side by side. Her piece is even but has a jagged edge. The cells are crushed. The juice has leaked out. His piece is even and the edge is clean. The cells are intact. The juice is inside. When fried, her onion will lose its sweetness in the first 10 seconds. His onion will retain it for 2 minutes. The difference between a good dish and a great one is 2 minutes of sweetness in the onion. Minsu looks at the 2 pieces. He is silent. He takes a knife and starts cutting again. Quiet. By noon, the broth is ready. 10 o'clock. Jisun adds a spoonful from jar number 5. The broth turns white. Minsu stands nearby and watches. She sniffs the air. Her face changes. She asks what he added. Jisun says he'll explain later. First, she must learn to make broth without the jar, just bones and water. When her broth is perfect on its own, then he'll show her what comes next. Minsu clenches her jaw. She's used to getting answers right away, but she nods. At 2 o'clock, Jisun hangs up the sign. Open. The first guest arrives 10 minutes later. The same man from yesterday, without the ring, with tired eyes. He sits down in the same chair. Jisun sets the broth and rice in front of him. The man eats in silence, finishes his meal, puts down the money, 10,000 won, leaves. The second guest arrives an hour later, an elderly couple, husband and wife, both small, both wearing identical beige Panama hats. They sit next to each other, their shoulders touching. Jason watches them for 30 seconds. They don't need peace, they don't need strength, they need warmth. He cooks pumpkin porridge, hobakjuk, sweet, soft, with rice balls. He adds a drop from jar number 12. Master Sun signed it. The sea at Sokcho. The porridge turns out with a barely perceptible salty note, like the wind from the shore. The couple eats from a single bowl with 2 spoons. The wife scoops rice balls for her husband. The husband pushes the bowl closer to her. When they leave, they hold hands. Minsu stands by the wall and watches. She has seen how they cook on TV shows, how they cook in restaurants with 300 seats, how they cook on an assembly line. But she has never seen a chef stand for 30 seconds in front of a guest and decide what to cook while looking him in the eye. She asks how he does it. Jason says he doesn't know how to explain it. It's not a technique, it's observation. For 12 years, he watched people eat. Thousands of faces, thousands of reactions. At some point, you start seeing not the face, but what lies behind it. Minsu says that sounds like nonsense. Jason says that's probably true. In the evening, Ha-in arrives. She isn't seeking shelter from the rain. There is no rain. She just comes. She brings a small bouquet of wildflowers. She puts it in a glass on the counter. She sits down. Jason places rice and banchan in front of her. 3 kinds: zucchini, tofu, pickled radish. Hyun eats slowly. Between bites, she talks about her shop. There aren't many customers. Wedding season is over. 2 months until the fall holidays. She's hanging in there, but every month it's a question of whether the shop will make it to the next one. Jason listens, doesn't interrupt, doesn't give advice, just listens. Hyeon falls silent mid-sentence, says she hasn't told anyone about her business in a long time, that she usually keeps quiet. Jisun says she can talk in this diner, or stay silent, whatever feels right. Hyun nods and finishes her meal in silence. When she leaves a sprig of lavender on the counter. Minsu is washing dishes behind the counter. He looks at the lavender. He says the florist clearly has a soft spot for him. Jisun says that Minsu needs to wash dishes, not draw conclusions. Minsu snorts. A week goes by. Every day is the same, and every day is different. Up at 4, broth, prep. Open at 2, close at 8, 2 to 5 customers a day, revenue from 14 to 35,000 won. Not much, but enough to buy groceries for tomorrow. The man without a ring comes every day. Jason learns his name is Kwon Do-kyun, that he works as a security guard at a shopping mall, that his wife left 4 months ago, that he comes here not because he's hungry, but because it's quiet here, and the broth smells like childhood. Jason doesn't ask for details. He just sets a bowl in front of him every day. On the 10th day, Do-kyun says he's brought a friend. A second man follows him in, also a security guard, also tired. Jason stares at him for 30 seconds. He doesn't make broth, but spicy kimchi stew. Hot, fiery, red. The man eats and sweats. He wipes his forehead with a napkin. He says he hasn't eaten like this in a long time, that it feels like he's been slapped in the face, but it's pleasant. Jason smiles slightly. On the 12th day after closing, Minsu sits down at the counter and says she wants to try making the broth herself. Tomorrow. Jason nods. In the morning, Minsu stands at the stove. Bones in the water, the heat. She's doing everything right. By the book. 10 hours. Skimming the scum every 20 minutes. Adding daikon. Removing the daikon. The broth comes out clear, transparent. Jason tastes it. Technically, flawless. The salt is right. The color is right, the flavor is right, but it's empty. Like a room where everything is in its place, but no one lives there. He tells Minsu that the broth is good. Minsu says she hears the word, but not the feeling in his voice. She wants to know what's wrong. Jason thinks for a long time. Then he takes the pot and pours out all the broth. Minsu flinches. 10 hours of work at the sink. Jason says that broth isn't a process. Broth is a conversation. You talk to the bones, to the water, to the fire. You ask them what they want to give you, and you listen. Minsu says he's crazy. Jason says maybe, but tomorrow she'll cook again, and the day after, and every day until she hears the answer. Minsu stands over the empty sink. Her hands clench into fists. She turns and walks out onto the street. Jason hears her kick the trash can around the corner. 5 minutes later, she returns. She sits down on a chair. She says, tomorrow at 4. Her voice is steady, angry, but steady. In the 3rd week, a woman with a notebook comes into the diner. Jason notices her from the street. She stands at the entrance and studies the sign. She writes something down. Then she looks through the window. Then she comes in. Tall, slender, shoulder-length hair. She's wearing a gray raincoat and a scarf despite it being summer. A press pass on a lanyard hangs around her neck. Seoul Daily. She sits down at the counter, sets down her notebook, says her name is Yoon Chae-won, that she's a food writer, that she's writing a series of articles about the snack bars disappearing from Seoul's back alleys, one after another, like obituaries. She heard from an acquaintance that someone in Ikkwon-don opened a new snack bar in the old one's place. That's unusual. Usually, old eateries close down for good. She wants to write about it. Jisun is silent. The last time anyone wrote about him, it made headlines. The chef of a Michelin-starred restaurant berates a critic on live TV. He doesn't want journalists, doesn't want articles, doesn't want attention. He says the eatery is small and there's nothing to write about. Chae-won looks at him calmly. She says she knows who he is. Han Jiseong. She's read all the articles about the scandal. She's not here to write about the scandal. She's here to write about the diner. Jason says he still doesn't want her to. Chae-won nods. She stands up. She says she'll just eat then, like a regular customer, if that's okay. Jiseong looks at her. 30 seconds. His eyes are intelligent, attentive. But something is hidden behind that attentiveness. Something personal. She doesn't just write about diners. She's attached to them. He doesn't understand why yet, but he senses it. He goes to the kitchen. He thinks, what to cook for a journalist who writes obituaries for diners? He chooses kalguksu, simple noodles, but not ordinary ones. He kneads the dough, rolls it out, cuts it into strips with a knife. Thick, uneven, the way you cut them at home, not in a restaurant. He makes the broth with anchovies and brown seaweed, adds zucchini and potatoes, and a single drop from jar number 22. Master Son signed it. Pusan, a single port. The soup comes to a boil. The aroma fills the kitchen. Minsu, who is cutting vegetables for tomorrow, looks up. She sniffs the air. She wrinkles her nose. She says it smells like the sea. Jiseong nods. He places a bowl in front of Chaewon. Chaewon picks up a spoon. She tastes the broth. Then she picks up some noodles with her chopsticks. She chews. She stops. Her hand with the chopsticks hangs in the air. She doesn't move for 3 seconds. Then she lowers the chopsticks. She looks into the bowl. Her lips tighten. She picks up the spoon and takes another sip, slowly. Her eyes redden. She isn't crying, but she's close. She asks how he knows. Jisoon asks what exactly. She says it's the taste. These noodles. That's how her father used to make them. He had a diner in Busan. Kalguksu with clams. He cooked it every day. 16 hours in the kitchen. No days off. No vacation. When she was 15, he collapsed right there in the kitchen. Heart attack. The ambulance didn't make it in time. The diner closed that same day. No one uncovered the recipe. No one carried on. It all vanished. Since then, she's been writing about other people's diners because she couldn't save her father's. Jiseong stands on the other side of the counter. He didn't know. He couldn't have known. But jar number 22 is labeled with a single word, Busan. And kalguksu is the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Busan. A coincidence? Or something he can't explain yet? Chaewon finishes her bowl. She wipes her eyes with the back of her hand, quickly, professionally, like someone used to hiding their emotions. She puts down the money, stands up, stops at the door, says she won't write the article if he doesn't want her to. But she'll come back, as a guest, if that's okay. Jisoon nods. Chaewon leaves. Minsu stands in the kitchen doorway. He looks at Jisoon. He says that he made the reporter cry. Jisoon says he made the reporter remember. Those are different things. Chaewon comes the next day, and the day after that, and 3 days later. She sits at the counter with a notebook and doesn't take notes. She just eats. Sometimes they talk. She talks about the alleys she's seen, about the diners that have closed in the last year. 47 in Jongno alone. 47 places where someone got up at 4 in the morning every day and made broth. Now, in their place, there are coffee shops with identical interiors and identical coffee. Jisoon listens. Every story is someone's life condensed into a single paragraph. Opened in 80, closed in 2023. Between those dates, 43 years of someone's labor. Chaewon says she writes obituaries, but no one reads them. People scroll through their feeds. They post a sad emoji. They forget a minute later. The diners are disappearing, and the world doesn't notice. On her 4th visit, Chaewon says she wants to help. Not as a journalist, as a person. She can keep the books, count the money, do the shopping. She has a car. Jisoon says he can't pay her. Chaewon says she doesn't need money. She needs a place where food is still alive. Jisoon nods. Now there are 3 of them. Jisoon is in the kitchen. Minsu is studying. Chaewon does the accounting and the shopping. At the same time, Yuna starts coming to the diner. Yuna is a delivery person on a scooter. She's 19. She wears a helmet covered in anime character stickers and talks faster than she thinks. The first time, she pops in for water. The second time, for rice. The third time, she sits down at the counter and speaks her mind. She knows he has food left over at the end of the day. She saw him take out the container. She's a living person. She's hungry. If he's going to throw it away anyway, he might as well give it to her. Jason says he doesn't throw it away. He takes it home. Yuna says he lives here anyway. Jason doesn't argue. He sets a bowl in front of her. Yuna eats so fast that Minsu watches her with horror and admiration at the same time. Yuna says she has a 10-minute break between deliveries. She can't eat slowly. She comes back the next day. And the next. Jason charges her half price, 5,000 won instead of 10. Yuna says it's still expensive. Jason says it doesn't get any cheaper. Yuna grumbles but pays. On the 5th day, Yuna doesn't come alone. A boy is with her. A little boy, about 9 years old, skinny. His skin is pale to the point of transparency. He's wearing a knitted hat even though it's 30 degrees outside. There's no hair under the hat. Yuna says he's her younger brother. His name is Yunho. He has leukemia. He's been undergoing chemotherapy for 2 years now. He can't taste anything. The chemo kills more than just the disease. It kills his sense of taste. Everything tastes like metal to him. Water, rice, soup, candy. It's all the same. A metallic aftertaste that won't go away. Yuna works 3 jobs to pay for his treatment. Delivery, the night shift at a 24-hour store, handing out flyers on the weekends. She says she isn't asking for money. She isn't asking for pity. She asks for only one thing. If Jason is as good a cook as they say, maybe he can make something that will make her brother feel something. Jason looks at the boy. Yunho sits on a chair and stares at the counter. His eyes are big, dark, mature beyond his years. He is silent. Children who have been sick for a long time are silent in a different way than healthy children. They are silent like people who have already understood everything. Jason crouches down in front of him. He looks into his eyes. He says he'll try. He doesn't promise. He'll try. Jason hasn't slept for 3 nights. He reads Master Sun's notebook from cover to cover. He's looking for something about taste that can break through the dead taste buds. Chemotherapy destroys the cells responsible for taste. The mucous membrane in the mouth becomes inflamed. A metallic taste is a side effect of the drugs. They bind to the receptors and block the signal. Master Sun didn't know about chemotherapy. In the 60s, cancer was treated differently. But there's an entry in the notebook for a boy who doesn't speak. Not that he can't speak, he doesn't want to. The recipe for this entry is simple. Kyoranchchim, egg custard, soft, warm, safe. Master Sun cooked it in broth from jar number 1, the oldest one, with the addition of a single drop of home-fermented makgeolli. The boy who hadn't spoken began to speak after this dish. Jason doesn't believe in miracles. He believes in chemistry. At the right temperature, egg white forms a gel that coats the mucous membrane. Makgeolli contains lactic acid bacteria that can temporarily alter the pH in the mouth. The broth from jar number 1 is 60 years of fermentation, 60 years of microbial life, complex proteins, amino acids, glutamate, things that work not through ordinary taste receptors, but through smell, through texture, through temperature, through the body's memory, not the brain's. He gets to work. He ferments the makgeolli himself, from scratch. Rice, water, nuruk. A yeast flatbread from Master Sun's notebook. 3 weeks of fermentation. Every day he checks, sniffs, tastes. On the 3rd day, bubbles. On the 5th, tartness. On the 10th, sweetness. On the 15th, balance. On the 20th, the makgeolli is ready. While the makgeolli ferments, the snack bar is open. Guests arrive. 4, 5, 6 a day. The chairs are full. People bring in more people. Dokyeon brings in 2 more security guards. The old lady from the first night comes every Wednesday and brings a friend. Then another one. The elderly women from the alley sit at the bar and discuss Jiseong as if he weren't in the room. One says he's too skinny. The second says that he needs a wife. A third says he looks like her late son-in-law, only more handsome. Minsu listens and rolls his eyes so hard you can see the whites. Hyun comes every evening, brings flowers, puts them on the counter, sits down, eats, is silent, sometimes speaks about the flowers, about the weather, about how rain smells on hot asphalt. One day she says the scents have grown fainter. Jiseong asks what she means. Hyun says that before she could smell every flower in her shop individually. Lilies, roses, chrysanthemums, jasmine. Now they all blend together, like a radio losing its frequency. She says this calmly, without self-pity, like a fact. Jiseong is silent. He doesn't know what to say. But he remembers. On the 28th day, what Jason feared happens. A girl walks into the diner with a ring light and a phone on a stick. Behind her is a guy with a backpack from which a microphone sticks out. The girl is young, bright makeup. Her lips are glossy. Her nails are long. She looks around, turns on the camera, starts talking into the phone. Hi everyone. Today I found the strangest place in Seoul. A 6-seat diner in an alley. They say they serve one dish a day here, and people cry because it tastes so good. Let's check it out. She sits down. She points the camera at Jason. She says she needs a serving. For content. Jason stands behind the counter. His face is stony. He says they don't allow filming here. The girl says she's a blogger. She has 400,000 followers. It's free advertising. Any restaurant in Seoul would give anything for that. Jason says he doesn't need advertising. The girl laughs. She says everyone says that. Then they thank him. Jason steps out from behind the counter. He walks to the door. He opens it. He tells her she needs to leave. The girl stops laughing. She looks at him. She asks if he's serious. Jason says he's serious. She can come back as a guest. No camera, no microphone, no lights. Like someone who came to eat, not to film content. The girl stands up. Her face turns red. She says he'll regret it. She leaves. The guy with the backpack follows her. Min-soo stands against the wall with his arms crossed. He says Jason just turned away 400,000 potential customers. Jason says he has 6 chairs. He doesn't need 400,000. He needs 6. A week later, the blogger returns. No camera, no guy with a backpack. In a plain t-shirt, no makeup. She sits down. She says she was angry for a week. Then she got curious. What kind of food is worth giving up 400,000 views for? Jason looks at her. Without the camera, she looks different. Younger, quieter, tired. He goes to the kitchen. He cooks simple ramen, not from a packet, from scratch. Dough, alkaline water, rolling, cutting, broth made with pork and anchovies, kimchi on top, an egg. He sets it in front of her. The blogger eats, silently, finishes it, puts down her spoon, says it's the best ramen she's ever had, then says she won't film it, but she'll come back. Jason nods. The 21st day of fermentation. The makgeolli is ready. Jiseong takes jar number 1, the oldest one. He opens it. The aroma is so intense that his vision blurs for a second. He cooks gyoranjim, eggs, broth from jar number 1, 1 spoonful, a pinch of salt, steam, low heat. The cream sets slowly, smooth, golden, like a little sun in a bowl. He adds a single drop of makgeolli, covers it, waits 5 minutes, opens it. The surface is perfect, not a single bubble. Yuna brings Yunho in after lunch. The boy sits down on a chair. His feet don't reach the floor. He swings them in the air. He's wearing the same hat. Jiseong places a small bowl of gyoranjim in front of him, a small spoon. Yunho looks at the bowl. He picks up the spoon. He scoops some up, brings it to his mouth, closes his eyes. Everyone is watching. Min-soo is by the wall. Chaewon is behind the counter. Haeun is in the doorway. Yuna stands next to her brother, holding her breath. Yunho holds the spoon in his mouth. 1 second, 2, 3. His eyes open, wide open. He looks at Yuna, speaks softly. Nuna, I can feel it. I can feel the egg. Yuna opens her mouth, closes it, opens it again, says nothing, turns around, walks to the door, goes outside, sits on the curb. She covers her face with her hands. Her shoulders shake. She can't go back inside. Min-soo follows her out. He sits down next to her, silently. Yoonho eats kyoranjim in small spoonfuls, slowly. With every spoonful, his face changes. He isn't smiling. He is coming back. From that gray place where everything tastes like metal, he is returning to a world where an egg is an egg, where warmth is warmth, where taste exists. Jiseong stands behind the counter and watches the boy. His hands aren't shaking, his eyes are dry, but inside, something broke and put itself back together. 6 months ago, his dish poisoned a man. Today, his dish restored a child's sense of taste. The scales have tipped. Ha-in stands in the doorway and cries quietly. She cries because the boy can taste, and because she will soon be unable to smell. The morning after the incident with Yoonho, Min-soo is making broth, for the 6th time. Jisoon poured out the previous 5. She gets up at 3, an hour earlier than usual. She soaks the bones overnight, rinses them twice, puts the water on. The heat is on low. She doesn't leave the stove for 12 hours, not even 20 minutes between. 12 hours straight. She stands and watches. The water, the bones, the bubbles. She listens, just as Jisoon said. She doesn't understand what it means to listen to the broth, but she stands there and tries. By the 4th hour, she feels like she's going crazy. By the 6th hour, she begins to notice. The foam on the surface changes color every 20 minutes. First gray, then yellowish, then white, then it's gone. The sound of the boiling changes too. First rough, then softer, then almost silent. At the 10th hour, she adds daikon, not because the recipe says so, because the broth asks for it. She can't explain how she knew, she just knows. An hour later, she removes the daikon. Jisun comes up from the basement where he was checking the jars. He walks over to the stove. He picks up a spoon. He tastes it. He stands there silently. Min-soo watches him. Her face is haggard. Her eyes are red from 12 hours at the stove. Her hands smell of bones. Jisun says one word. Yes. Min-soo leans her back against the wall and slides to the floor. She sits down. She says quietly that she hates him. Then she says thank you. Then she says she still hates him. Jisun pours her a bowl of her own broth. Min-soo drinks. Her face changes. She's tasted 5 of her own broths before. They were fine. This one is alive. She feels the difference. And for the first time, she understands what Jisun was talking about. Broth isn't a recipe. Broth is a relationship. From that day on, Min-soo makes broth every morning. And every time, it turns out a little different. She starts keeping a notebook. She writes down the temperature, the humidity, her mood. Jisun looks at it and smiles slightly. She has started to listen. 2 days later, a girl Jisun wasn't expecting walks into the diner. Young, 22, maybe 23, wearing thin framed glasses, hair in a neat ponytail, dressed expensively. Not flashy, expensive. The fabric, the cut, the shoes. Everything costs money that Jisun no longer sees. She sits down, says she heard about this place, doesn't say from whom. She says she's studying at a culinary college, wants to try it out. Jason looks at her for 30 seconds. Something puts him on guard. She's too calm, too composed. Culinary college students don't walk like that, don't sit like that, don't talk like that. She speaks like someone who's been taught how to behave in certain circles. But he cooks for everyone who sits down at the counter. No exceptions. He sets a tofu jjigae in front of her. Simple, spicy, honest. The girl eats, neatly, properly. A spoonful of broth, then rice, then another spoonful. Classic Korean manner. Perfect. Too perfect for a college student. She finishes her meal, says it's delicious. Her voice is steady, calm. She asks if she can come back. Jisun nods. She comes the next day, and the next. Every time she sits in the same chair, the one on the far right. She eats. She looks toward the kitchen. Sometimes she types something into her phone under the table. Min-soo notices first. He tells Jisun that the girl is writing something. Every time, after every dish. Jisun says maybe she's keeping a diary. Min-soo says people don't keep diaries in strangers' diners by hiding their phones under the counter. On her fifth visit, Jiseong sits down next to the girl after closing time. He says he wants to ask her something. She tenses up. He asks her name. She says, So Jiun. Jiseong doesn't react. The surname So is common, but something clicks in his head. So Tae-hyun, his former mentor, Chef Yun-hwa, the man who may have ruined his life. He doesn't say this out loud. He asks what she's writing down. Jiun blushes. She says she keeps a taste diary since childhood. She describes every dish she tries. The taste, the texture, the temperature, the aftertaste. It's true. Jiseong can see that. But it's not the whole truth. He doesn't press her. He says it's a good habit. Jen nods. She leaves. Min-soo says he doesn't trust her. Chaewon says they should check her last name. Jiseong says he won't check. If Jian is a spy, she's a bad spy because she hides her phone under the counter like a schoolgirl. And if she isn't a spy, it's unfair to check. Min-soo says he's a naive idiot. Jiseong says maybe. A week goes by. Jion comes in every day. She starts staying late after closing. She helps Min-soo wash the dishes. She wipes down the counter. One day, she picks up a knife and starts chopping onions. Her hands are skilled, quick, precise. Better than Min-soo's were when she first started. Jiseong watches and realizes, this girl studied under someone serious. Not in college, not from books, from a living master, from someone who stood beside her and corrected every movement. He doesn't ask who, but he knows. The cutting style, the angle of the knife, the positioning of the hand. This is So Tae-hyun's school. Jiseong would recognize it among 1,000. Because 10 years ago, he stood next to Tae-hyun and learned exactly the same way. In the evening after closing, he goes up to the roof of the building, a flat roof with a tin railing. From there, you can see the alley from above, the lights of the mini-market, the dark window of the flower shop, a street light on the corner. Beyond the alley, the rooftops of Seoul stretch toward the horizon. Jiseong stands and thinks. If So Tae-hyun sent his niece, that means he knows about the diner. So the rumors have reached him. So it will start soon. Jiseong isn't afraid of Tae-hyun. He's afraid of what Tae-hyun might do to the jars, to the notebook, to the people who come here, because Tae-hyun won't stop. Jiseong has known him for 12 years. Tae-hyun isn't the kind of person who stops. Behind him stands the Myungja Group, the conglomerate that buys up side streets, that turns diners into chain coffee shops, that measures food in profit margins rather than in a grandmother's tears over a bowl of soup. Jason climbs down from the roof. He closes the diner. He lies down behind the counter, a notebook under his head. 47 jars in the basement, one dead. The 49th is missing. A spy behind the counter, an enemy on the horizon, and 6 chairs where every day someone gets what they need. That's all he has. That's enough. 3 days after Jian's arrival, a white van pulls up to the diner. 2 men get out, wearing identical blue jackets with writing on the back. City Health Inspection. One is short, holding a tablet. The other is tall, carrying a camera. They walk in without knocking. The short one shows his ID. He says they received a report, a complaint about violations of food storage regulations. Anonymous. They're required to investigate. Jason stands behind the counter. His face is calm. Inside, everything tightens. He knows where the complaint came from. He knows who's behind it. But there's no proof. And right now, that doesn't matter. What matters is what these two find. The inspector with the clipboard walks around the kitchen. The photographer snaps photos. The stove, clean. The counter, clean. Knives, on hooks. Cutting board, washed. Sink, no traces. Min-soo stands in the corner and stares at the inspectors so intently that the shorter one tries not to turn his back on her. The inspector checks the refrigerator. Small, worn. Jason bought it in the second week. Inside, food in containers, each one labeled. Date, contents, storage temperature. Jason has kept records since day one, not because he was expecting an inspection, because that's how a professional kitchen works. 12 years in a 3-star restaurant is, above all, discipline. The inspector with the tablet nods. So far, everything's clean. Then he notices the door to the basement. He asks what's down there. Jason freezes for a second. Jars. 47 live cultures without labels, without certificates, no paperwork. Ceramic jars with no production dates. Contents of unknown origin. From a health code standpoint, this is a violation, a serious one. He says there's a storage cellar downstairs. The inspector says he needs to take a look. Jason opens the door. They go down, a phone flashlight. The inspector looks at the shelves, at the 47 jars, 37 on an empty spot. In a recess in the corner, he takes one jar, opens it, sniffs it, grimaces, asks what it is. Jason says they're fermented pastes, homemade. The inspector says there's no labeling on them, no date, no ingredients, no certificate. This is a violation of Section 14 of the Food Safety Act. He starts taking notes. Jason feels the ground shifting beneath his feet. If they confiscate the jars, it's all over. They can't be restored. They can't be reproduced. They can't be bought. These are living organisms that are decades old. If they take them to the lab for analysis and leave them in a plastic container at the wrong temperature, they'll die within a day. A door slams upstairs. Voices. Jason goes up. 4 people are standing in the diner. Do-kyun in his security guard uniform, the old woman from the first night, her friend, and Kang Hyun-ju, the owner of the cafe across the street. A woman Jason has seen dozens of times, but with whom he has barely exchanged 3 sentences. Short, sturdy, hair pulled back. Her apron fits like a second skin. She stands in the middle of the diner with her hands on her hips, watching the inspectors come up from the basement. Hyun-ju says she owns the place across the street. 20 years on this street. She knows this alley better than anyone. And she knows there was no report of any violations. Because there are no violations. Because this chef keeps the kitchen cleaner than an operating room. She's seen it herself. The inspector with the tablet says a report came in and they're required to respond. Hyun-ju says she knows perfectly well how anonymous reports work. That last year, the same kind of report came in about the fish shop on the corner. The shop was shut down for a month. Then it turned out that the report was sent by a representative of a chain that wanted to buy the space. The shop didn't survive a month of downtime. It closed for good. The chain opened a waffle cafe in its place. The inspector is silent. Hyun-ju says that if they take even 1 jar from the basement, she'll call 3 newspapers, 2 TV stations, and the district representative, whom she knows personally because she's been feeding him lunch every Friday for 8 years. She says this calmly, no shouting, no threats, like someone stating facts. Do-kyun stands by the door, silent. He's 6'5" and his shoulders take up half the doorway. He doesn't say a word. He doesn't need to. The old woman has been sitting behind the counter since the first evening. She says quietly that she remembers this diner. She remembers Master Sun. She remembers his jars. They were here before the health inspection came, and they'll be here after. The inspector with the tablet looks at the photographer. The photographer looks at the inspector. The shorter one closes the tablet. He says that at this stage, they haven't found any critical violations. He recommends labeling all containers with homemade products. A follow-up inspection in 6 months. They leave. The van drives away. Jason stands behind the counter. His hands are shaking. Hyun-ju looks at him. She says he looks terrible. When was the last time he ate a proper meal? Jason says he ate this morning. Hyun-ju says rice with soy sauce isn't a meal. She leaves. 20 minutes later, she returns with a pot. Kimchi stew. Hot, thick, red. She sets it on the counter. She pulls a bowl out of her apron. Rice. She sets it next to the pot. She says, eat. She doesn't ask. She just says it. Jason sits down at his own counter. He picks up a spoon. He eats. Hyunju's kimchi is killer, spicy enough to bring tears to your eyes. But behind the heat lies sweetness. The cabbage has been fermenting for at least 6 months. Pork broth with tofu, everything is just right. Everything is in its place. Every flavor is where it should be. Jiseong eats and can't stop. He finishes the bowl. Hyunju pours a second one. He finishes the second one. Hyunju sits across from him. She's silent. Then she says she knows who sent the inspectors. The whole alley knows. Myungja Group has been buying up properties in this neighborhood for 2 years now. 3 snack bars on the next street have already been sold. The laundromat on the corner got an offer. The mini market is holding on for now, but for how long? Hyunju says they offered to buy her cafe too. 300 million won. For a place she's been building for 20 years. She turned them down. They came back with 400. She turned them down again. They sent the inspectors. She survived. Now it's Jiseong's turn. She says the alley isn't a business. The alley is a family. And if one house burns down, the whole street comes to put out the fire. Jiseong looks at her. For the first time in 6 months, he feels he's not alone. Not because there are people around, but because there are people around who came on their own, without an invitation, without being asked, just because that's how the alley works. In the evening after closing, he sits on the roof. Min-soo is next to him. She's silent for 10 minutes. Then she says she's figured it out. Ji-eun is So Tae-hyun's niece. She found it on social media, a photo from a family dinner, Tae-hyun and Ji-eun at the same table. Jiseong nods. He knew. From the moment he saw how she held the knife. Min-soo asks what he's going to do. Jiseong says nothing. Min-soo says she's a spy and that she needs to be kicked out. Jiseong says no. That Jen comes every day. She eats, she washes the dishes, she chops onions. If she were just a spy, she'd come once a week, record and leave. But she stays. She helps out. She laughs when Min-soo yells at the pot. She asks about recipes. She writes in her taste diary not just what she tasted, but also what she felt. She's not just spying. She's interested. For real. Min-soo says he's too kind, that it'll be his downfall. Jiseong says maybe, but Master Sohn's diner is open to anyone who sits at the counter, even to the one sent to shut it down. Downstairs in the diner, there are fresh flowers on the counter. Hyun came by while they were sitting on the roof and left them at the door, white chrysanthemums and a sprig of lavender. Jiseong goes downstairs. He puts the flowers in a glass. He closes the door. He goes to bed. 47 jars breathe in the basement. This time, he doesn't dream of anything. A week of silence follows the inspection visit. No calls, no threats, no white vans. Jiseong knows this isn't the end. It's a pause. Taehyun is thinking, reworking the plan, looking for a different approach. During this week of silence, something happens that Jiseong didn't expect. Jen comes in the evening after closing. Alone. No phone, no notebook. She sits down at the counter and is silent for 2 minutes. Then she says she has something to tell him. Jiseong wipes down the counter and waits. Jen says that her uncle is So Tae-hyun, that he sent her here, that she was supposed to write down recipes, ingredients, techniques, everything Jiseong does, and pass it on. Every evening, she sent her uncle a report. What was on the menu? How many guests? What ingredients? She did this for 2 months. Jason nods. He says he knows. Jim looks up at him. He says he recognized it by the knife, by the way she holds the blade at a 30-degree angle, by the way she places her left hand on the ingredient. That's the Taehyun school. He learned the same way 10 years ago. Jian is silent. Then she asks why he didn't kick her out. Jason says it's because she came every day, washed dishes, chopped onions, stayed after closing. Spies don't wash other people's dishes. People who are looking for something real do. Jian lowers her head. Her hands clench on the counter. She says that her whole life she was taught that authentic cuisine is gangnam-gu. White tablecloths, tongs, porcelain, stars. Her uncle used to say that everything else was second-rate, street food for those who can't afford the real thing. She believed him, because he was the only family she had left. Her parents died in an accident when she was 14. Her uncle took her in, got her back on her feet, paid for her education, put a knife in her hands, taught her everything he knew. She can't betray him. But she can't betray what she's found here. She says that here, for the first time, she saw an old man crying over a bowl of soup. How a boy can taste again after 2 years of metal in his mouth. How a woman closes her eyes and returns to her childhood with a single spoonful. In Kanamgu, she saw people taking pictures of their plates for Instagram. They take 2 bites, leave the rest, pay 300,000, leave. Jisun listens, doesn't interrupt. Jen says that her uncle called yesterday. He said he's moving on to the next stage. He wants to buy the snack bar's space, not from Jisun, from the building's owner, directly. If the owner sells, Taehyun will terminate the lease and the snack bar will close. Legally, clean, no inspections. Jisun feels a chill rising from his stomach to his throat. The space doesn't belong to him. He's a tenant. If the building is sold, the new owner can terminate the lease with 3 months' notice. The law is on the owner's side. He asks Jen how much Taehyun is offering. Jen says 600 million won. That's twice the market price. The building's owner, an elderly man, lives in Incheon. He isn't sentimental. To him, it's just income. 600 million for a dilapidated building on a side street is a gift. He'll agree. Anyone would agree. Jason is silent for a long time. Then he says thank you for telling him. Jin stands up. She says she won't be sending reports anymore, no matter what happens. Jason says he knows. Jen leaves. The door closes. Jason sits behind the counter and stares into space. 600 million. He has 14 in his account. He can't beat the offer, can't buy the building, can't do anything. In the morning, he tells Chaiwan. She listens with a notebook. She doesn't take notes. She thinks. She says there's one option. If the owner hasn't signed yet and if she manages to talk to him. She's a journalist. She knows how to talk to people. Persuade. Don't pressure. Explain what this place means. She goes to Incheon that same day. She returns in the evening. Her face is tired. She says the owner listened. He didn't refuse. He didn't agree. He took a week to think it over. His name is No Myung-soo. He is 73. His wife died 2 years ago. He lives alone in an apartment by the sea. Chaiwan says he isn't mean, not greedy, just lonely and tired. He doesn't care what happens to the alley because he stopped caring about anything a long time ago. Jisun thinks about it for 2 days. Then he does what he knows how to do. He cooks. He makes sagorguk. 12 hours. On can number 5. He pours it into a thermos. He drives to Incheon. He finds the address. He rings the doorbell. But Myung-soo opens the door. A small old man in pajamas. Jisun bows. He says he's a tenant in his building in Ikkwandon, that he brought soup. The old man looks at him suspiciously. Then he looks at the thermos. He lets him in. The apartment is empty. Clean, but empty. No photos, no flowers, no smell of food. The kitchen is sterile. The stove is covered in dust. This man doesn't cook. He probably hasn't eaten properly in a long time. Jisun pours the soup into a bowl he found in the cupboard. He sets it in front of the old man. But Myung-soo takes a spoon. He tastes it. His hand pauses. He tastes it again. And again. He eats in silence. When the bowl is empty, he sits and stares at the table. He says his wife used to make him soup every morning. 46 years. Every morning. He'd wake up to the smell of broth. 2 years ago, the smell disappeared. Since then, he hasn't been able to eat. Everything tastes bland. He lives on bread and milk. Jason is silent. The old man lifts his head. His eyes are wet. He says he won't sell the building. Jason says thank you. The old man says on one condition. Jason waits. The old man says he wants to come once a month, sit at the bar, eat soup. Jason says the chair will be waiting for him. He returns to Seoul, tells everyone. Minsu shouts with joy and punches the counter so hard that the chrysanthemum bobs in the glass. Ha-in smiles quietly. Chae-won writes something in a notebook. Yuna says this is the best news of her life and demands a celebratory serving for free. Jason cooks for everyone. For the first time in 3 months, he's not cooking for guests. He's cooking for his own people. Rice, broth, kimchi from Hyunju, panchan from Minsu, flowers from Ha-in. They sit at the counter. 6 people, 6 chairs. Everyone is busy. Jason stands on the other side and watches them. 6 months ago, he was alone. Now he isn't. Taehyun learns of No Myung-soo's refusal 3 days later. Jien no longer sends reports. But Taehyun has other sources. Money buys information faster than loyalty. The next move doesn't come from Taehyun personally. It comes from Myungja Group, the legal department. A letter addressed to Han Jiseong, official, on letterhead. The gist is simple. Han Jiseong's chef's license has been temporarily suspended for 1 year. The suspension expires in 2 months. But the Myungja Group has filed an appeal with the Food Safety Committee demanding that the suspension be extended for 5 years, based on the food poisoning incident and new evidence of storage violations. The very same violations the inspector recorded in the report. Unlabeled jars. If the committee approves the extension, Jiseong has been able to legally cook for another 5 years. The diner will close. Jiseong sits behind the counter with a letter in his hands. The letters are blurring, not from tears, from anger. It's clean, legal, elegant. Taehyun didn't come with a knife. He came with a piece of paper. Min-soo reads the letter over his shoulder. He says 2 words that shouldn't be uttered in front of children. Then he says, we need to fight. Find a lawyer. File a countersuit. Jiseong says he doesn't have money for a lawyer. Chaewon says she'll write an article. Publicity might help. If people find out that Myungja Group is crushing a small diner through bureaucracy, it'll cause a stir. Jason says no. He doesn't want to fuss, doesn't want to turn the diner into a symbol of a struggle. It's not about a struggle. It's about food. Hyunju comes by in the evening. She heard from Min-soo. She sits down at the counter. She's silent for a minute. Then she says she knows someone, a lawyer. Not an expensive one, a young one. He eats at her place every Tuesday. She's been feeding him on credit for 6 months now. He owes her 120 servings of kimchi stew. He'd be happy to work off the debt. Jason looks at her. Hyunju looks back. Her face is calm, warm, strong. She doesn't ask for permission. She's already called. The lawyer is coming tomorrow. His name is Hwang Sonu. 28 years old, skinny, wearing glasses that slide down his nose. He arrives with a folder and sits down at the counter. He reads the letter. He says the appeal is weak. The storage violations aren't related to the original incident. A license suspension for food poisoning and a suspension for labeling are 2 different things. The committee will most likely reject it, but the process will take time, 3 months at least. 3 months during which Jason's future will be up in the air. 3 months of uncertainty that will scare off any guest who reads in the news that his chef is under investigation. Taehyun doesn't need to win the case. He needs to create a stir. Jason nods. The lawyer says he'll get to work. He leaves. Hyunju places a bowl in front of Jiseong. Kimchi stew. She says, eat. Jiseong eats. Days go by. The diner is open. Customers come in. Rumors about the letter are spreading down the alley. The cashier from the convenience store says that if the diner closes, she'll personally go to the mayor. Dokyeon says he's ready to stand at the door and not let anyone in blue jackets in. The old woman from the first night brings rice cakes and says that in her youth, such problems were solved more easily. She doesn't say how. These days, what Jiseong has been waiting for and fearing is happening. Hyeon comes in the evening. She sits down. She doesn't take a spoon. She just sits there. Jiseong sets the soup in front of her. Pumpkin, her favorite. Hyun looks at the bowl. She says she can't smell anything. Not today. Not from this soup. Not at all. In the morning, she opened the shop. She picked up a lily, brought it to her face. Nothing. She picked up a rose. Nothing. Jasmine. Nothing. She stood in the middle of her shop among hundreds of flowers and couldn't smell a single one. Her anosmia was getting worse. The doctors had said this would happen. She thought she was ready. She isn't ready. Jason stands on the other side of the counter. His hands grip the edge. He doesn't know what to say. Words won't help. He knows one thing. He knows how to cook. He goes to the kitchen. He thinks. If she can't smell, that means half of her sense of taste has vanished. 80% of what we consider taste is actually smell. Without smell, only the tongue remains. The 5 basic tastes: sweet, salty, sour, bitter, umami, and texture, and temperature, and pain. Capsaicin in hot peppers isn't a taste, it's a pain signal. It doesn't depend on smell. Jason starts thinking differently, not like a chef who builds a dish around aroma, like an engineer who builds a dish around tactile sensations. He prepares 3 small plates. The first, tofu, but not ordinary tofu. He freezes the tofu overnight and then thaws it. The texture changes. It becomes porous, spongy. He soaks it in broth from jar number 3. Salty, deep. Umami that hits the tongue directly, bypassing the nose. Second, a piece of daikon pickled in vinegar with sugar and a drop from jar number 15. Crunchy, sour, sweet at the same time. A contrast of textures, soft and firm in a single bite. Third, rice porridge and coconut milk with a pinch of gochujang from jar number 2. Soft, warm, with a slow burn that rises 30 seconds after a bite. She places it in front of Hyun. She picks up a spoon. She tries the first bowl. Her eyes widen. She feels it. Not the smell, the texture, the taste, the temperature. She tries the second. Crunch, tartness, sweetness. The third, warmth, a burning sensation, softness. She eats slowly, each bite separately, as if she's learning to eat all over again. When the bowls are empty, she sits with her eyes closed. Then she opens them. She says he's created a scentless world for her where there's still taste. Jason says he'll cook for her like this every day. As long as she comes, he'll keep looking for ways. Texture, temperature, contrast, pain. Everything that works without a nose. Hyun nods. Her eyes are wet, but she isn't crying. She smiles, a small smile, quiet, like a white chrysanthemum. A month after the letter from Myungja Group, something happens that Jisun didn't expect. He gets a call from JTBC, a producer of a cooking show. Polite, cautious. He says rumors have reached them about the diner in Ikwandan, about a former chef who feeds 6 people a day and whose food makes people cry. They want to propose a format, a showdown, teacher versus student. So Taehyun versus Han Jiseong, live broadcast. The same studio where the food poisoning incident occurred 2 years ago. Jisun is silent for 30 seconds. The producer adds, Myungja Group is the sponsor. They proposed the format. They suggested the venue. They suggested the date. This isn't an invitation. It's a trap. Taehyun wants public humiliation. He wants to show the whole country that Jisun is a former cook from a seedy diner who can't compete with the chef of a 3-star restaurant. Jisun says he needs to think it over. He hangs up. He gathers everyone in the evening. Minsu, Chaewon, Hyein, Yuna, Hyunju, Jiun. They're sitting at the bar, Jisun explains. Minsu says it's a trap, obviously. We can't go. Chaewon says that on the other hand, a live broadcast is an opportunity. If Jisun wins, it's the end for Taehyun. If he loses, nothing will change because he has nothing to begin with. Hyunju says she's seen shows like this. Everything is decided in advance. The judges are bought off. The applause is on cue. Yuna says she doesn't care about the show, but if Jisun goes, she'll root for him. Hyein is silent. Jien stays silent. Then Jien says one thing. She knows what Uncle is preparing for the showdown. His signature dish. Beef tartare with truffle sauce. The very dish that was swapped out 2 years ago on live TV. Taehyun wants to make it again, in public, to prove that the dish is flawless, that Jisun was to blame, that it was Jisun's hands that were dirty, not the recipe. Jisun hears this, and something clicks into place inside him, like the last piece of a puzzle. For 2 years, he didn't know who had switched the dish. Now he knows. Taehyun is cooking the exact same dish. Because he's confident. Because he knows it's safe. Because he was the one who switched it back then. And now he wants to prove that the original is perfect. But the flaw was in the cook, in Jisun. Jisun stands up. He says he'll go. Minsu starts to argue. Jisun raises his hand. He says he's not going to win, not to prove anything. He's going to cook. One dish for one person. just like he does every day at his diner. Minsu falls silent. She knows that tone. Jisun calls the producer. He says he agrees. The date is in 3 weeks. 3 weeks to prepare, Jisun thinks. Not about the recipe, about the person. There will be a panel of judges on the show, 5 people, critics, chefs, celebrities. But Jisun isn't going to cook for them. He asks Chae-won. She's a journalist. She has contacts at the TV station. He asks her to find out one thing. Who works as a cleaner in that studio? Chae-won looks at him strangely. Then she nods. 2 days later, she brings the information. The cleaner's name is Park Soo-nok, 67 years old. She's worked at the studio for 12 years. She lives alone. Her husband died a long time ago. Her children have moved away. She mops the floors before and after the broadcast. No one knows her last name. To everyone, she's just the ajumma with the mop, Chae-won adds. Park Soo-nok lost her mother 3 days ago. The funeral was yesterday. Today, she came to work, because she can't afford to miss a shift. Jisun closes his eyes. 3 days ago, the funeral yesterday, work today. He asks Chae-won what Park Soo-nok's mother used to cook for her. Chae-won shakes her head. She doesn't. Jisun says he'll find out for himself. He heads to the studio. Security won't let him in. He waits at the service entrance for 2 hours. Park Soo-nok comes out at 9:30 in the evening. Small, stooped, in a blue work jacket. Jisun approaches. He says he's a chef, that in 3 weeks he'll be cooking in this studio, that he'd like to cook something for her. Park Soo-nok looks at him as if he's crazy. He asks one thing, what her mother used to cook for her on Saturdays when she was little. Park Soo-nok is silent. Then her face twitches. She says one word, kalguksu, with clams, every Saturday, for 40 years. Then her mother got too old. Then she forgot the recipe. Then she forgot everything. Then she died, 3 days ago. Jisun nods. He says thank you. He leaves. 3 weeks. He'll cook kalguksu, the simplest dish. Noodles, broth, clams. For the woman in the blue jacket who buried her mother this morning and came to mop other people's floors because she couldn't afford to grieve. At home, he opens Master Sun's notebook. He looks for kalguksu. He finds it. The recipe is simple. Flour, water, salt. Roll out by hand, cut with a knife, broth made with anchovies and brown seaweed, fresh clams, and a spoonful from jar number 22, Pusan. The same broth he made for Chae-won, the broth that reminded the reporter of her father. He begins to practice, every day, for 3 weeks, kalguksu after kalguksu, dough after dough. Minsu helps. He cuts the noodles. He learns. Chae-won keeps track of the time. Ha-in brings flowers every day. Yuna delivers groceries on a scooter. Jien stays silent and sharpens knives. Hyunju brings kimchi and says that if he loses, she'll personally go to the studio and poison Taehyun with her kimchi. She's joking. Probably. Broadcast day. The JTBC studio. The very same one. The same walls, the same lighting, the same cameras. 2 years ago, Ji-sun stood here and his life ended. Today, he stands here again. Minsu is beside him, in a spotless chef's jacket. She looks serious. Her face is stony, hands in her pockets so no one can see them shaking. Behind the glass wall of the control room, Chae-won with her press pass. She arranged it through the editorial office. The hall has 200 seats. All are taken. Cameras, spotlights, the jury at a long table. 5 people. 3 restaurant critics, 1 TV chef, 1 representative from a food magazine. In the front row is Taehyun. He's standing, not sitting. Standing in a black chef's jacket with silver buttons. Next to him are 3 assistants. His station gleams. Stainless steel, professional knives. A set of truffles in a wooden box. Top-grade Hanwoo beef. It all costs more than a month's rent for Jisun's snack bar. Jisun's station is different. He brought his own pot. The very one from the flea market for 20,000. His own knife. The very one without a handle. A wooden cutting board. A bag of flour. Anchovies in a paper bag. Seaweed. A bag of shellfish. And 1 ceramic jar. Number 22. Pusan. The audience buzzes. The host announces the format. Teacher versus student. So Tae-hyun, chef of the three-star restaurant Yeonhwa, the face of Korean haute cuisine, against Han Jiseong, former sous at the same restaurant, now the owner of a six-seat eatery. The audience applauds. When the camera shows Jiseong, a murmur ripples through the room. That very chef. That very scandal. The host announces the start. 2 hours to cook. The judges evaluate. Taehyun begins. His movements are precise, beautiful. The camera loves his hands. He slices the beef into thin strips, each 2 millimeters thick. Perfect. He grates the truffle on a special grater. The aroma fills the pavilion. The audience gasps. It's a show. Taehyun knows how to look, knows how to sound, knows how to smell. 20 years in front of the camera. Jiseong starts quietly, kneads the dough. Flour, water, a pinch of salt. His hands knead, no machine, by hand. The dough comes to life under his palms. It becomes smooth, springy. He covers it with a towel, lets it rest, puts water on the stove, anchovies and seaweed, broth, simple, honest. The camera lingers on his face. He is calm. He isn't faking calmness. Calm. An hour later, Taehyun shapes the tartare, thin slices of beef, truffle cream, microgreens with tweezers, a drop of oil, a drop of sauce, every element in its place. The plate looks like a work of art. The audience applauds. Jason rolls out the dough. Thin, then folds it, cuts it with a knife. The strips fall onto the board unevenly. Thick. Just like at home, not like in a restaurant. The voiceover says it looks like street food. Someone in the audience laughs. Jason doesn't hear. He's making broth. He adds clams. They open up in the boiling water, the smell of the sea. Then he takes a jar, opens it. 1 spoonful, into the broth. The smell changes. Minsu stands nearby. She can smell it. Everyone in the front rows can smell it. Something has shifted in the air, as if a breeze from the shore has blown into the pavilion. 2 hours are up. The host announces the serving. Taehyun goes out first. 5 plates for the judges. Beef tartare with truffle. The judges taste it. They nod. They take notes. One of the critics says it's flawless, technically and aesthetically. Applause. Taehyun bows. His face is satisfied, confident. It's Jiseong's turn. He comes out with a single bowl, just one. The host is confused. He asks where the portions for the judges are. Jiseong says he didn't prepare this dish for the judges. The room falls silent. Jason says he prepared this dish for the woman in the 3rd row, the one in the blue work scarf. She worked a 12-hour shift today. 3 days ago, she buried her mother. Her mother had cooked her kalguksu with clams every Saturday for 40 years. The camera searches. It finds her. Park Soon-ok is sitting in the 3rd row by the aisle. She isn't supposed to be in the hall. Chae-won made arrangements with security. She got her in. Park Soon-ok doesn't understand what's happening. Cameras all around, lights, people. She clenches her hands on her lap. Jiseong walks across the hall with a bowl. He kneels down in front of her. He holds it out. Park Soon-ok takes the bowl. It's hot, white broth, noodles, clams, green onions. Steam rises to her face. She picks up a spoon, brings it to her lips, takes a sip. Her hand stops. The spoon hangs in the air. Her eyes widen. She takes a second sip, slowly. Her mouth opens slightly. She presses her palm to her lips. Tears stream down her cheeks. She doesn't wipe them away. They fall into the bowl. She eats, in small sips. Between bites, she closes her eyes and her lips move silently, as if she's talking to someone who isn't there. Dead silence in the pavilion. 200 people hold their breath. Close up. Park Soon-ok's face. Tears. Broth. Steam. A spoon. Taehyun stands behind his station. His face is pale. He realizes he has lost. It wasn't the dish that lost. He lost. Because his dish is beautiful and flawless. But no one in the hall is crying over the beef tartare. An old woman in a work scarf is crying over the kalguksu that cost 5,000 won, and the entire hall is crying with her. Park Soon-ok finishes her bowl. He wipes it clean with rice. He lifts his head. He looks at Jiseong. He says one sentence. That's how my mother used to cook. The host is silent. The judges are silent. Then one of the critics stands up. He doesn't applaud. He just stands up. A second. A third. The entire hall stands up. Silence. Then applause. Jiseong stands in the middle of the pavilion. The host approaches. He says that by decision of the sponsors and the organizing committee, Han Jiseong is awarded a special culinary star for his contribution to the preservation of Korean culinary tradition. Jiseong looks into the camera, the very same camera that exposed his shame 2 years ago. He says he's refusing the star. The hall falls silent again. Jason says that stars shine far away, but people eat right here. That his little eatery has 6 chairs, 1 dish a day, for whoever sits across from him. Not for ratings, not for the camera, not for the star. For a person. He puts the microphone on the table. He walks toward the exit. Min-soo follows him. At the door, he stops. He turns to Taehyun. The room falls silent. Jason speaks softly, but the microphones pick up every word. He says he knows who switched the dish 2 years ago, that he won't take them to court. He won't seek revenge, because revenge is a dish he doesn't know how to cook. Taehyun stands motionless. His face is ashen, his hands on the counter. He doesn't answer. Jason walks out. It's nighttime outside. Seoul is ablaze with lights. Min-soo stands nearby. She's silent. Then she says it was the most idiotic and the most beautiful thing she's ever seen in her life. Jason smiles, his 3rd smile in 6 months. The morning after the broadcast, Jason returns to Ikkwandong Alley at dawn. He walked from the subway station. The streets are empty. The air smells of rain that hasn't started yet. He turns into the alley and stops. There's a line at the snack bar. It's 5 in the morning. 12 people are standing along the wall, some with umbrellas, some with thermoses. One woman in a wheelchair, an old man with a cane, a couple of students with backpacks. They stand in silence, waiting. Jason approaches the door. People part. One woman says she saw him on TV yesterday, that she cried, that she came to try it. Jason nods, opens the door, goes inside. Inside, everything is just like yesterday. A counter, 6 chairs, a chrysanthemum in a glass, mint on the windowsill, a notebook on the shelf. He goes down to the basement. The jars are in place, all 47 of them, alive, breathing. He goes back up, puts on an apron, turns on the stove, blue flame, puts water on to boil, starts the day, just like every day. 4 in the morning, bones, water, fire. Min-soo arrives at 4:10, silently puts on an apron, stands by his pot, cooks the broth, the 16th, each one better than the last. Chuan arrives at 6, not with a notebook, with bags, groceries. She bought double the usual amount. She knew people would come after the broadcast. Ha-in arrives at 7, with an armful of flowers, white chrysanthemums, lavender, wild daisies. She places them on the counter, on the windowsill, on the shelf behind the counter. The diner smells of flowers and broth at the same time. Yuna zooms in on her scooter at 8, a helmet covered in stickers. She says the whole internet blew up yesterday. A video from the broadcast racked up 2 million views overnight. Everyone's talking about it. The chef who turned down a star. The chef who cooks for the cleaning lady. The chef from the alley. The hashtag #sleepchip is trending. Jason says he doesn't need trends. He needs clams. Yuna shows him a bag. She brought them, fresh, from the morning market. Jian arrives at 9, quiet. She sits in the corner, not in her usual chair, in the corner. Jason approaches her. She says that Uncle isn't talking to her. That yesterday, after the broadcast, he called and said one sentence, "You've chosen a side," and hung up. Jian isn't crying. Her face is calm, empty, like someone who has lost something heavy and hasn't yet realized if it's gotten any easier. Jason sits down next to her. He's silent. Then he says she has a chair in this diner, always, that it's her spot if she wants it. Jian nods. She stands up, grabs an apron, goes to the kitchen, grabs a knife, starts cutting. Hyunju comes in at 10 with a pot of kimchi and says she saw the broadcast, that she yelled at the TV in anger when they showed the tartare, and that she cried when the cleaning lady ate the soup. Then she says that yesterday, for the first time in 5 years, she sat down and ate her own food. She put a bowl in front of her, she picked up a spoon, and she ate. Just like before, when her husband was alive, when she cooked for 2. Yesterday, she cooked for 1, for herself. And for the first time in 5 years, she didn't get up from the table. Jiseong looks at her. Hyunju looks back. Her eyes are dry, warm. She sets the pot on the counter and goes back to her place across the street. At 2 o'clock, Jiseong opens the door. 12 people, 6 chairs. The first 6 come in. The rest wait. Jiseong cooks. A different dish for everyone. He watches for 30 seconds. He goes to the kitchen. Minsu helps. Jian cuts. Chaewon serves. Yuna cleans up. They work like a well-oiled machine, like a family working together. 6 guests leave. The next 6 come in. By evening, 30 people have passed through the diner. A record. More jars were used than usual. Jason goes down to the basement after closing and counts. Consumption has doubled. At this rate, some crops will be depleted in 6 months. He can't feed 30 people a day. He has 6 chairs, 47 jars. Every one is precious. He sits on the basement floor. He thinks. Master Sun's notebook lies nearby. He opens it to the page he's reread dozens of times. Whoever finds this notebook won't find recipes. They'll find the people I fed. And further on, a line he hadn't noticed before, in small handwriting in the margins. 1 jar can become 2. If you divide it and feed them both, they will grow, but only if the hands are right. Jason rereads it. 1 jar can become 2. Mother cultures can be divided. Not infinitely, but it's possible, if you know how. If the hands are right. He goes upstairs. He gathers everyone. Says he has an idea. A crazy one. He wants to teach people, not just how to cook, how to preserve. Each student will receive 1 jar, 1 culture, 1 piece of heritage, and will open their own snack bar, in their own alley, in their own town. Not a chain, not a franchise, a family. Minsu says it's the craziest thing she's ever heard. Then she says she'll be the first. Jen says she'll be the second. Yuna says she'll be the third, but she needs to finish college. Chaewon says she's not a cook, but she'll write about it. Every student, every snack bar, every alley. She won't write obituaries. She'll write birth stories. Ha-in says she'll bring flowers to every snack bar, so each one smells alive. Even if she herself can no longer smell them. She knows that flowers have a scent. It's enough for her to know. Hyunju says she'll teach every snack bar how to make kimchi, because without kimchi, it's not a snack bar, but a cafeteria. Evening. Everyone leaves. Jisun is alone. He washes the counter. He wipes down the chairs, checks the jars, goes down to the basement, comes back up, steps outside, stands under the awning. The rain starts. Quiet, warm, summery. The alley glistens with water. The lights from the mini-market reflect in the puddles. Hyun's store is dark. She's already closed. The lights are still on at Hyunju's cafe. The streetlight on the corner sways in the wind. Jisun stands and looks at his alley. 6 months ago, he stood in this very spot, under this very awning, in the same kind of rain, with a single bag and a key to a door that wouldn't open. He was alone, broken, empty. Now behind that door is Master Sun's notebook. 47 live jars. A chrysanthemum on the counter. Mint on the windowsill. 6 chairs where every day someone gets what they need. And 5 people who came on their own and stayed. The rain is getting heavier. Jisun is about to go inside. And then he sees her. A little girl, about 8 or maybe 9 years old, standing on the corner of the alley, in a yellow raincoat. The hood pulled down over her eyes. In her hands, she holds something wrapped in a rag. She presses it to her chest. She walks toward him, small steps on the wet asphalt. She stops in front of the door. She lifts her head. Her face is wet from the rain. Her eyes are dark, serious. She speaks. Ajoshi, is that you, Han Jiseong? Jiseong nods. The girl unwraps the cloth. Inside is a small ceramic jar, just like the ones in the basement. Worn, old, a faded number on the side. 49. The girl says, Grandma told me to give this to you before she died. She said you'd know what to do with it. Jiseong takes the jar. His hands are shaking. The ceramic is warm, as if someone had been warming it with their palms the whole way. He opens the lid. The smell. He can't describe it. There are no words. At the bottom of the jar is a dark paste. Alive, breathing, bubbling. Master Sun wrote on the back of the lid, "If you find jar 49, do not open it." Jason looks into the jar, then at the girl, then at the rain. Then he closes the lid. He doesn't know what to do with it. Not yet. But he knows one thing. The story isn't over. It's only just begun. He takes the girl by the hand, says, "Come in. It's warm in here." They go inside. The door closes. The rain beats against the tin roof. The lamp hums. 47 cans breathe in the basement. The 48th stands on the counter. Warm. Alive. Waiting. On the sign above the entrance, 2 characters get wet in the rain. Sunchip. Sun's house. The house that feeds again. After the broadcast, a line formed at the diner, and Jason realized he couldn't scale up, but he could train students by giving each one a jar for their own diner in their own alley. Hyunju ate her own food for the first time in 5 years. Jen finally broke up with her uncle and stayed on the team. That evening, in the rain, a little girl came to the snack bar and brought jar number 49, which her grandmother had told her to give to Jason.